Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpaturubhischa Kripa Sindhu Vaja Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I don't know about Pranam devotees, so I am keeping up with the questions and answers that are coming in. So actually, some I answered back directly and personally because I've already, as a Facebook Live, dealt with that subject matter, so I didn't need to reiterate it and create repetitive videos about the same subject matter. So one question that came in, which I did think was worth doing a short presentation on, was why it is said, when I don't have my phone in front of me again, so I'm paraphrasing and multitasking at the same time to some degree, because I'm preparing obviously for making noon offering here. The question was essentially, where do we see that Srila Prabhupada spoke on the necessity of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from RASIK devotees? That's the way the question was couched, that was sent. And if there are no RASIK devotees, does that mean we should not hear Srimad Bhagavatam? So that was the gist of the question that was sent in. So two things, of course, Srila Prabhupada has certainly mentioned in the writings, his writings, quoting Srila Rupa Goswami Pad in the 64 Angas of Bhakti, I think it's number 61, that Srimad Bhagavatam Artadam Rashikoshaha, that one should try to understand the artha or the meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of Rasik devotees. So part of the problem here is defining what is Rasik, because certain connotations or connotative meanings have been, put out, and sometimes that's become what has been seen as Rasik devotees. So people develop a certain imagery, people develop a certain kind of association with particular groups and so forth. But Rasik means a person who is capable of tasting the rasa, which is inherent in Bhakti Sastra, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasayam Alayam, that the Srimad Bhagavatam is Rasa Sastra. So, and of course, the writings of our Goswamis, which are really expansions of Srimad Bhagavatam, are also in many cases Rasa Sastra. So the ability to understand the meanings in relation to rasa, because they're not two different things, it's important that obviously you would hear in the association of someone who has the ability, one, to do rasa ashwadan, means to actually taste the rasa samagri, the ingredients of ras, which is present in those sastras, at least someone who's understood the concept of ras. So then the question becomes, well, what is rasa? So then we have to go to the definition of what is ras, and there's two different understandings. They're not really separate, but they're, to make it clear, one is the definition of ras as vyatiti bhavana vatma yas chamatkara bharabahu ridi sattva ujale bhadam. So a person whose heart has become illuminated by Suddha Sattva, means Swarup Shakti, that person is capable of holding, just like if you have a cup or a container, they're capable of holding and tasting the rasa samagri. So samagri means like a mixture, like in curry powder, you have a mixture of cumin, turmeric, coriander, other kinds of things, and that creates a samagri that ends up being what we call curry powder. Sometimes masala is also used because it's a mixture of ingredients that creates a certain spice. So in the same way, rasa is a constituent of different ingredients. It's composed of different ingredients. I hope I said the first thing right. right? So here the other definition of rasa will be that sthai bhav, anubhav, satvik bhav, sanchari bhav, when they come together in a proportion, it creates, from bhakti, it creates bhakti rasa. Okay? So sthai bhav. A sthai bhav means the permanent emotional sentiment that a person has towards Sriman Mahaprabhu and Shri Radha Krishna Yugal. So that permanent sentiment, which is realized by the unfoldment of bhakti, is called a sthai bhav. That sthai bhav becomes crystallized and realized at the stage of bhav, right? So that sthai bhav has anubhavs, or moods that naturally follow the sthai bhav. So those anubhavs, well, first let me deal with sthai bhav. Sthai bhav also, there are two elements which come in the sthai bhav. One is alamban and one is udipan. So alamban means that there has to be two categories. One category is the object of the love, it is called vishai, and the other is ashray. It means the repository of that love. So, sthai bhava utrasa aprokta Sri Krishna vishai nirati. The object of love for the devotee is both Radha and Krishna. But between Radha and Krishna, Krishna is the vishai. He's the object of love, and Radhika is the repository of love. She is the asraya japya. Then there's udipan, those things which stimulate love. Krishna's qualities, Krishna's name, Krishna's whatever is tadiya, or one with Krishna, like his dham, Krishna's associates. So all these things serve as stimulants for love. And then there's anubhavs. Anubhavs are in different categories. So anubhavs means those emotions which naturally follow this established loving relationship. So they're generally of two kinds. One is called udbhaswara. Udbhaswara means those things which give expression to the emotions, which also have the application of intelligence. Someone claps and smiles very much at something that makes them happy. Well, obviously this is a combination of an expression, right, of your feeling, along with the application of your intelligence. On the other hand, and I'm making this short, is sattvika bhavs. Sattvika bhavs mean those bhavs which come as involuntary expressions, such as fainting, or horripilations on the body, or profuse tears, or changing of bodily color, or choking of the voice, right? These are in the spiritual category. To make it understandable in a more mundane example, so to speak, is if you were to get news of the passing of a dear loved one or something, then that might cause you to faint. So the fainting is an involuntary response to an emotional upsurge, right? So you don't have to apply your intelligence or anything here. Just hearing that news, or conversely hearing news that makes you extremely happy, you may start to cry profusely, right? Maybe somebody finally asks, oh, will you marry me? Or excuse me, will you marry me? Or, yeah, will you marry me? So then any lady, or if it's vice versa, if a lady's asking a gentleman, then maybe profuse tears will come. I don't know, I'm trying to find examples to express it. So involuntary responses are called sattvic, right? Or swabhavik, natural responses, right? And then they have vyabhichari or sancharis, 33 transitional emotions that, like if you were, the examples given in an ocean, there are waves that sort of rise and then they fall again. So sanchari bhavs are like that. They're emotions that rise up and have some relation with the sthai bhav, and then they sort of recede, right? So just in a simple way, this is a definition of sanchari, of vyabhichari bhavs. Now, when those four things, the sthai bhav, the vibhav, anubhav, and anubhavs, of course, meaning udbhaswara and sattvik, and sanchari bhavs, when they mix together in the right proportion, they create an astonishing taste in bhakti, right? And that is called bhakti rasa. Much in the same way, if you took all the ingredients like ice, water, lemon, perhaps some other flavoring, and you mix them together in the right proportions, it would create lemonade. Maybe it's raspberry lemonade or blueberry lemonade, whatever it might be, but that has a unique taste. Even though the individual ingredients have their own taste, that combination in right proportion has also its own amazing taste. This is called chamatkar. So bhakti, when it mixes with these things, creates chamatkar, an astonishing wonder in the taste of that emotional content. So this is called rasa. A person who, both by understanding and even more so by the ability, because of purity of heart, to taste this combination of elements as bhakti rasa, they are called rasik. And because the nature of Srimad Bhagavatam and our other writings that have come in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are primarily and almost exclusively composed of rasa, right? There's also so much tattva siddhant that's there. But the tattva siddhant is also like part of the foundation of the container that you will hold rasa in. Because if you have no foundation in tattva siddhanta, then trying to hold or to taste rasa will lead to theological and even spiritual unfoldment problems like prakrita sahajavad, etc. So there needs to be a clear foundation of tattva siddhanta. And when there's a clear foundation, it means your patra, your container, is suitable now to hold first the concepts of rasa and later the ability to taste rasa as your heart becomes more pure. So obviously being in the association while studying Sastra with a Rasik Vaishnav is very important. And our Srila Prabhupada did give plenty of evidence for that in so many places, in Ramananda Samvad, 4th chapter of Adi Leela, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, right in the very first canto, first verse, he recommends, of course, if you want to understand this verse, etc., then you can also consult the commentary of Rasik Shiromani, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad. What to speak, our Srila Prabhupada, does anyone have any doubt that he was very high class of Rasik devotee? You can simply look that Srila Prabhupada was living in the Rasa Stali in Radha Damodar temple, having the darshan Rup Goswami, Rup Manjari, that Srila Prabhupada's deep absorption in the moods of Braj, which led to the establishment of all of our temples with the deities of Radha Krishna, etc. Do you think he was somehow or another not Rasik? So everyone was hearing pretty much the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam from Rasik Vaishnava. All of us, because everybody pretty much came, with some exceptions, and of course in the latter days with the traveling of so many stalwart Vaishnavas, then many people came under their auspices as well. But a great many people who came to Krishna consciousness obviously came through the prabhav, or the influence of our Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada was extremely Rasik, because one of the effects of Rasik Vaishnava association is that it creates taste. And in Srimad Bhagavad Gita is clearly mentioned here. Vishaya vinivartante nirashadena rasovrajam rasopyasya param drishya nivartate. So rasovrajam means the giving up of jad ras. Because even in the material world, people operate on the principle of rasa ashwadam. It is jad ras, it is material rasa, but you don't do things unless you are clearly inspired by the taste derived from whatever it is you're doing, whether it's athletics, business, whatever it might be. So here it's mentioned that simple repression of material interest, vishai, won't do, but rather it has to be displaced by a param drishra, by a superior taste. And that superior taste is the rasa, which is imbued in bhakti, or spiritual life. So without having someone to be able to stimulate, inspire, and give that mood of a superior taste, how will you ever be able to disassociate from jad ras, or material taste? So it's very clear from so many indications throughout Srila Prabhupada's writings and translations, teachings, etc., that there was certainly no lack of the mood that one should have association of a Rasik devotee, not to mention he himself was a Rasik Vaishnava. One Prabhuji in the chat, very nice, Prabhuji is quoting that even in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's mentioned, Yaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnaverasthani, Ikanta Shraya Kara Chaitanya Charanya. That even if you want to understand the nature of Rasa, everything, you must have association of Bhagavat Pada. Bhagavat Pada means that kind of Vaishnava who is coming in the line of Mahaprabhu. And those Vaishnavas coming in the line of Mahaprabhu, they are imbued with Bhakti Rasa. You understand? So the sort of connotations that came up around the idea of Rasik being something deviant or some unnecessary additive or intrusion on, Srila Prabhupada's movement, teachings, etc., is obviously unfounded and not tenable as a understanding as far as how to practice bhakti, because then we would essentially be saying that Rupa Goswami Pad was wrong. Or in the case of Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami quoting Shrarup Damodar, that what verse I just quoted also would be wrong. So certainly we cannot say like that. So it is clear that there is importance to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Rasik devotees. Because when you hear from powerful Vaishnavas like that, Satam Prasangam Amavirya Samvido Bhavantirit Karana Rashanaya Kata, Tajosa Rapasu Asu Apavagavatmani. Then the material existence, Pavarga, Apavarga, very quickly that's removed, and Shraddha Rati Bhakti Anukramishiti, and in a sequence, then Bhakti gradually becomes prominent. Prabhuji is also quoting very nice verse as well. Even the foul Stutya Srimad Bhagavatam, Nigama Kapatara Galitam Phalam, right? In this shlok, it's the third shlok, it is called the foul Stuti shlok. It is clearly mentioned, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasayam, Alayam, right? So here the word Alayam means until. So there's different meanings to Alayam, but here the indication is that the same thing which is rasa will become rasayana, or medicine, while one is unfolding to the eligibility to taste rasa. We have a sort of explanation of that in the Upadeshamrita Shri Goswami Pad, where he compares that while a person has jaundice, the ability to taste the rasa, which is inherent in Harinam, is sort of checked by that disease of jaundice. But gradually, by the chanting continuously of Harinam, then that jaundice is removed, and the sweet sugar candy or rock candy-like quality of Harinam could be tasted. So even in Harinam, rasa is dominant. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Even Harinam is rasa. So there's no escaping the idea that we do need Rasik Bhavuk association in order to taste the very teachings that are the foundations and the expansions of Mahaprabhu's teachings on bhakti. So I wanted to make this short, and hopefully, Prabhuji, that this answers your question. Of course, there's no better way to confirm all these things than by yourself associating with any Rasik Vaishnava. I know in the course of your question you also asked some other things like who is a Rasik Vaishnava, how will you find Rasik Vaishnava? Well, that requires some self study and some work to be done to understand what is Vaishnava Guru Tattva. Because by studying what is Vaishnava Guru Tattva, you then have a template in order to be in the association of Vaishnavas. Because if you don't have any understanding of what is Vaishnava Guru Tattva, and you have no understanding of maybe what is Rasa Tattva, etc., just like trying to buy any valuable gem, a diamond for instance, and you don't know much about diamonds, and you become completely dependent on the jeweler in order to tell you what is quality or not quality, then you may be cheated, you may not be cheated. Everything will depend on the quality of that jeweler, their honesty and everything else. So it does behoove any person, even in medicine. Most doctors will tell, those who are genuine doctors, they would rather have an educated patient, especially if you have a particular sickness, they want you to be educated on that so that you can be a participant in the healing process. If you are simply dependent on their diagnosis and treatments, that's not in your best interest. So it's always better to be informed on anything, from our health concerns to anything that we want to buy, like a gem or a jewel. What to speak of something that is exactly and completely our life. This is it. There isn't anything else for any serious devotee than bhakti. There is nothing else. So why not have some information content about those things you want to know? So I would say, if you want to understand who is Rasik, Vaishnava, etc., then you should do study on Vaishnava and Guru Tattva to understand what are different grades of different Vaishnavas, so forth. And then look for those qualities. Al Sri Goswami Pad, Sri Jiva Goswami Pad, they've all written on these things. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Manasiksha, he's written on all of these things. So, not Vishnu Chakravarti Tattva, Madhurya Kandamini. So it's not that there's an absence of the knowledge, or it's very esoteric, or it's very rare. It simply requires that we have to also have some endeavor. All right, Prabhuji. Again, I'm always praying to the dust of the lotus feet of all Vaishnavas. Please bestow your causeless mercy on me. Also, please, everyone, have very nice absorption in Kartik Mas, and hopefully your savor during this Kartik Mas is very, very fruitful. Jai Vancha Kalpatruvishya Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Radhe Radhe.